Good evening, friends and subscribers, and good evening to our dear friends and family of Venoge who have joined us tonight in the meadow for a celebration. Tonight, we celebrate our freedom. And in celebrating, we'll have plenty of toast. We welcome your toast, and we also welcome your thoughts on what freedom means to you. I'd like to introduce my special assistant who's going to be helping me take your comments. Let's welcome our Shakespeare quoting, handsomely dressed, Captain Amos Beacon.
To be free or not to be? That is the question.
Good evening, Captain Beacon.
Good evening, Mrs. Lapenna.
Thanks for taking time off from the Plowboy and your adventures to be here tonight with me.
To quote the bard, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
I hope you too have your favorite elixir to join us in our celebration. So now, get set for an authentic red, white, and blue stars and stripes celebration of our freedom. And now, our hostess, the incomparable Mrs. Weaver.
Hear, hear.
I wouldn't go that far, Mrs. Lapenna, but thank you anyway.
You're welcome.
Yes, it's an exceptional evening today. We spent all afternoon getting ready to have the perfect color balance, the perfect lighting, the perfect focus, and then it rained torrentially. So we have moved everything, and 1/2 hour ago we did this. So this is freeform. Any rate, we're going to be seeing a small video, an intro video to what we're doing. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about my history in Philadelphia. I worked at the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia for 6 years and lived about 10 blocks away from Independence Hall. And every day I'd walk past Independence Hall, which was the old State House, Franklin's grave, the Graff House, which is where Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. And you walk down those streets in Philadelphia and you think, who walked down these streets with us? And it's just amazing that that much of our history is right there in the center city of Philadelphia. I did walk by Franklin's grave. I did not throw a penny on it because, as he said, a penny saved is a penny earned. But now let's take a real quick look at our intro video this evening. No holiday more embodied the American spirit than July 4th. The National Day, as it was known, and the festivities associated with it were a highlight of each passing year. Americans reveled in their hard-fought path to independence. The United States was an anomaly in the world. This was a representative republic founded on inalienable rights granted to each citizen by their creator, not the government. Following Congress declaring independence, John Adams wrote the following to his wife Abigail. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward, forevermore. In Vivi, Independence Day was one of, if not the most important day of the calendar year. During their journey here in 1801, the first Swiss settlers had experienced a July 4th celebration in Kentucky. As the years progressed, the holiday continued to be celebrated, but those who had fought to obtain our liberty were passing away. Celebrations and interpretations of the day were changing. Tonight we will look at why it is still the most important day on the American historical calendar. Independence Day for us at Venoge is not just one day in the calendar year, it is every day.
And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Huzzah!
Our first guest this evening is Martha Bladen, And Martha is director of the Switzerland County Historical Society. She's going to clue us in on a little bit of things that happened here in Switzerland County concerning Independence Day. Martha.
Hello. Well, when Donna called and asked if I could put some things together, and one of my main resources at the museum are newspapers. We have bound editions. I know there's places where people are sitting there reading them on machines, but we actually have the bound editions. And I feel with those I can get a real look at what's happening in the community. It's not just individual articles. Well, so to find out what happened at the 4th of July on Independence Day. So Perry Dufour and his Swiss settlements certainly talked about the very early ones that happened on the courthouse lawn, and that there was a parade, sometimes to the river, and they had a lot of festivities and music and firing of cannons. Well, the earliest newspapers I could find, that's where I started. Okay, and so like the attire I'm wearing, I'm not in the appropriate time period for the rest of the group here.
We
but,
won't tell.
Only we know? Okay. Well, I'm more 1850s, 60s, because we have a farmstead, the Historical Society, and that's what my costuming is for. But I'm going to start with finding out, while I was working on this project, in these newspapers, I could find things from the 1850s, 1860s, and I'm thinking, oh, I can't find enough. And then I went to a shelf where there was a rack of boxes, and in those boxes, I'm taking it down, and there was something I didn't even know we had, a bound edition of the Switzerland Monitor. So it was a newspaper, editions from the 1830s. And so right there, 4th of July, and it was very much oriented to children to begin with. And the Sabbath schools, and they were the beginning of the events of the day. And they would start the day with the firing of a cannon. And
What
then,
date is this? What
right now I'm on 1833.
Okay, good year.
1833, yes. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I kind of want to also point out as we go how the change of the census. So like in 1820, Switzerland County had 3,900. I'm rounding everything to the hundreds. By 1830, 7,000. So it's a community that is really growing. There's a lot of immigration, and we'll see in a little bit how that is changing some of the celebrations. Okay, so the order of the day was you would have the cannons, the procession, there's music, the artillery company, and Revolutionary War soldiers. You know, they were part of the festivities. Okay, and then the next newspaper I found was 1837. This time it's no longer the Switzerland Monitor, it is the Village Times. And I'll just read this paragraph because it really says what they were looking for in a celebration. We are much gratified to see our citizens making preparations to celebrate the approaching anniversary of American independence in a style becoming the age. This, above all other days, the day which gave us the liberty we now enjoy, should be held memorable in the hearts of every American freeman. Let the honest yeomen of our county, one and all, join in with us on the occasion and evince that patriotism and brotherly feeling which so signified our forefathers in times of yore, the days that tried men's souls. Just saying the yeomen, they're including the farmers, the immigrants who are not the business people in town. So that's kind of a bit of a change. Okay, and by 1837, they're still doing the same type of thing. That was my latest newspaper there. And then now, 1838, there's a change. We have the VV Sabbath schools, and so all of those are joining together, the three churches. But then Jacksonville wanted to have their own celebration.
Our friend Jacksonville.
Yes,
I
okay.
like that
So
town.
the celebration for the 4th of July at Jacksonville. And they did a national salute, will be fired at daybreak, and a procession will be formed at 12 o'clock. And here the procession will then march to an adjacent grove where the services usual as such occasions will take place, and from thence to the dinner, where the company will be regaled with the good things of all in life. The celebration will be accompanied by instruments and vocal music, and our fellow citizens in the different townships of the county who may not be otherwise engaged are solicited to unite with us in the celebration of the day which caused the Star-Spangled Banner to wave triumphant in our land. land, and indeed made us land of the free and home of the brave. So there they are again, being
They got it all
inclusive.
in
Yes,
there.
it's not
Absolutely.
just Vivi.
Yeah.
Okay, so by 1840, we've gone another decade.
Things are changing.
Yes, and we have a lot more people. So now our population went from 7,000 to 9,900. Okay, but the celebrations were pretty much the same. The change of the newspaper, the Indiana Palladium, but the
It didn't last too long, each one.
no, I'm not sure if there were at
Buying
the
and
same
selling.
times or not, but okay, so that was 1844. And then there was in the following week, kind of a sad note, but I pointed out because these celebrations sometimes had incidents. It becomes our painful task to note a distressing accident which befell one of our citizens on the 4th. Fleming Jones of Craig Township lost his right arm by the premature discharge of a cannon which he was assisting to fire in celebration of the day. That's not the only time I've read about
Right,
that
yes.
type of incident. Okay, let me skip that. Oh, no, I can't skip this one.
What year are we now?
Oh, now we are up to 1845.
Okay.
And this time, the 4th of July, the Odd Fellows want to have a celebration in Patriot. But they're doing it by having a boat start the anniversary for the Odd Fellows. They're going to come and get the boat. They're going to include lodges from Vivi, so you had to be down at the wharf at 7 in the morning.
Okay.
And so get there. But that was another time when they're kind of reaching out. But while that's happening in Patriot, they still had the Sabbath Day group again with the children, and then ending up with a big feast, and the Declaration of Independence is always included in
And
everything.
food is always included
Yes, definitely. Well, now let's go up to 1850,
too. Okay.
and now our population is 13,000. Okay, so here's, they're telling about one that just passed, the glorious 4th. The 4th has just passed, and by it many of the fond recollections of the past have been revived. The celebration by the Sunday schools was a prominent feature of the day. Hundreds of bright-faced, happy children passed along the streets with their banners displayed and inscribed with appropriate mottos. The old cannon was taken up on the hillside and discharged 13 times in the good old style, and sound of which reverberated along the hills and through the valleys.
I'll bet it did too with the way that Vivi is situated with the river. It's just like an amphitheater.
And then next year, we're heading out to Quercus Grove. They're also
Okay.
having a celebration.
We know about Quercus Grove if you read Tales from the Tavern.
Yes,
Park
yes.
Works.
And then also, besides Quercus Grove, we have Pleasant Township. And so then I'm starting to pick up a little bit of political problems, let's say. 1855, the Democrats, or those opposed to know-nothingism, celebrated the day at Enterprise. They had the cannon, which belongs to the United States, on the ground and wasted considerable powder.
A little snarkiness there.
Yes, a little bit. The Declaration of Independence was, and they have improved and read, and political speeches made by Scott Carter and P.H. Hale. The attendance was quite large, considering it was a quote, political gathering.
Okay.
But the celebration of the day they considered to be the one at Quercus Grove. And there were patriotic tunes, Declaration of Independence was read, and there was an oration. And so it was the typical, what they wanted to see in a celebration.
Yeah.
Okay, so now,
What is the year?
oh, I'm skipping this one because it's the whole birthday of freedom, but it's an incredible, no,
okay.
no.
Good
Okay,
reading for
let's
us.
go 1860s now.
Okay.
Now our population's up to 12,700, larger than what Vivi is now and this county is now. Okay, so the businessmen have put an ad in the paper, and there were 43 of them signed this, believing that the 4th of July should be observed as a national holiday. We, whose names are hereunto annexed, agree to close our respective places of business on the evening of the 3rd day of July and keep them closed until the morning of the 4th day of July.
Huh.
Well, I think it's a good thing they did because, okay,
the plot
here we
thickens.
are, July 4th, 1867. Now, this is just 1 year later. Today is the 91st anniversary of the independence of the United States. There will be no public celebration in this place, but the day will be appropriately observed by the citizens of this county en masse at the fairgrounds in Enterprise.
Okay.
Able speakers have been secured to address those in attendance. All are invited to attend.
Okay.
Well, when the paper came out the day after, I won't read all this either, but here we are, July 11th. Last 4th of July, our town was the scene of many disgraceful drunken brawls. The performance opened in the morning by a round between two young men who called each other ugly names and pounded one another's faces until separated. Oh my gosh, that's just the beginning. And it tells case by case what happened. And then the last little paragraph, it gives us pleasure to state that during the entire day and up to a late hour at night, Mr. A. Stowe, Marshal, was on our streets faithfully performing his duty.
So he did his job.
Yes, he did. So that's as far as I went with it.
Okay, well, that tells, as we say, things are changing, and apparently they changed a little bit for the worse, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah.
They lost the thread of what they were doing.
And there was no Sabbath school having the little celebrations
Yeah.
like they did. So instead of the children
Okay.
starting the day, it's a whole different kind of thing.
Okay, thank you, Martha. We're going to now switch gears, and I believe it's Lance Minnis who is going to, let me double check. Yes, we're going to have something lovely from Lance Minnis.
Happy 4th of July, everyone. Thank you. I hope today finds you a proper macaroni, dressed in your best, as we celebrate our nation's birth. This is a song predating the American Revolution by a little bit, and our revolution was our first Civil War. It pitted brother against brother, cousin against cousin, fathers against sons, and this is a country story of that event called Billy Broke Locks. 9 men to guard the British rank, and 5 to watch the town above, and 2 to stand at either hand, and 1 to let all 10 her out. He had 80 weight of Spanish iron between his neck bone and his knee. But Billy took Johnny under his arm and lugged him away right manfully. And Billy broke bolts and Billy broke locks and Billy broke all that he came nigh, until he came to the dungeon door, and that he broke right manfully. So he stole him a horse and away he did ride, and who but they rode gallantly, until they came to the river bank, to the river running wild and free. The British were coming close on their heels, and who but they stood fearfully, till Billy took Johnny up under his arm and carried him away quite easily. And Billy broke locks and Billy broke bolts and Billy broke all that he came nigh, until he came to the dungeon door, and that he broke right manfully. All you here in the audience and at home, feel free to sing along on the chorus. Oh Billy, the sheriff says he, you're the damnedest rascal I never did see. Come give me back the iron you stole, and I will set your prisoner free. Oh no, bold Billy, he said, oh no, that can never be. The iron will do our horses to shoe, the blacksmith rides in our company. Here we go. So Billy broke locks and Billy broke bolts and Billy broke all that he came nigh, until he came to the dungeon door, and that he broke right manfully. So they called at the inn for a room for to dance, and who but they danced merrily. And the very best dancer among them all was old John Webb, who was just set free. Everyone! So Billy broke locks and Billy broke bolts and Billy broke all that he came nigh, until he came to the dungeon door, and that he broke right manfully. Oh, Billy broke locks and Billy broke bolts and Billy broke all that he came nigh. nigh, until he came to the dungeon door, and that he broke right manfully. Thank you for your polite applause, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to do one more song for you right now. Skipping forward a few years in our history, we once again took up the banner against the old foe, Great Britain. But this time we had a navy, and we were able to test the mettle of our seamen against that of the greatest maritime nation on earth, to our great glory and honor. This song is called Constitution and Guerriere. In oft times has been told that the British seamen bold could flog the tors of France so neat and handy, oh. But they never met their match till the Yankees they did catch. Oh, the Yankee boys for fighting are the dandy, oh. The Guerriere, a frigate bold, as the foaming ocean rolled, commanded by proud Dacre, oh, the Grandy, oh. With his choice a British crew, as ever a rammer drew, could flog the Frenchmen 2-1 so handy, oh. When our frigate hove in view, said proud Dacre to his crew, come clear the ship for action and me handy, oh. To the weather gauge, boys, get her, and to make his men fight better, give them to drink gunpowder mixed with brandy, oh. Then Dacre loud the cries, make this Yankee ship your prize. You can in 30 minutes, neat and handy, oh. 25's enough, I'm sure, and if you'll do it in a score, I'll treat you to a double shot of brandy, oh. The British shot flew hot, which the Yankee answered not, till they got within the distance they called handy, oh. Now says Hull unto his crew, let us see what we can do. If we take this boasting Britain, we're the dandy, oh. And our first broadside we poured, took her mainmast by the board, which made this lofty frigate look abandoned, oh. Then Dacre shook his head, to his officers he said, Lord, I didn't think these Yankees were so handy, oh. And our second told as well, their foreign mizzen fell, which dashed the royal ensign neat and handy, oh. By George, says he, we're done, and they fired a lee gun, while the Yankees struck up Yankee Doodle Dandy, oh. But then Dacre came on board to deliver up his sword, though loath was he to part with it so handy, oh. Oh, keep your sword, says Hull, for it only makes you dull. Cheer up and let us have a little brandy, oh. Now fill your glasses full and we'll drink to Captain Hull, and so merrily we'll push around the brandy, oh. Johnny Bull may boast his fill, let the world say what it fill. The Yankee boys for fighting are the dandy, oh. Well, the Yankee boys for fighting are the dandy, oh.
Cheshire's Top Cat wants to know what Lance's all-time favorite song is. Lance?
Well, that's a puzzler for sure. I do love a good maritime song. I would think Safe and Sound or Constitution and Guerriere.
And we have a guest inquiring, what's your favorite drink, Mrs. Weaver? What's your drink of choice tonight?
Whiskey punch. Whiskey punch, definitely. Whiskey punch for everyone. And we have a supply. And you can find that recipe on the Victorian Bar Room.
That's right. As a matter of fact, I remember it being part of a
Oh,
special
yes.
that was here, right?
Yes,
That
yes,
was,
yes.
Which is very helpful because every time we try it here,
And we have, right next to me, Dana Gagnon, a expert in punches and whiskeys, correct?
I like to, I'm a sampler of punches and whiskeys. I don't know if I'll say expert.
An avid sampler.
And apparently avid sampler, apparently.
But today she's here to talk about games. She is game to talk about games.
I'm game for that. Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. If you're watching this, you may notice that my glasses are fogging up as we speak because it's just perfect
So
for that.
humid.
Yeah. Yes, we have some authentically lovely, warm
Yeah.
outdoor weather here. Which
Yeah,
is
we were
absolutely
reading
lovely.
earlier that in July 2nd, when the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence was ratified or was voted on, the temperature was a mere 80 degrees, and they were very hot. We're at right now 85 and incredibly humid because of the torrential downpour we just went through. So we're celebrating in the same temperatures.
The downpour it kind of lied to us. It made it feel like it was going to get cooler, and then it didn't. It just taunted us with the rain. But that's not what I'm supposed to be talking about.
I know.
What I came to talk about, because so often you see us doing tavern things here, and so I often bring tavern games with me. But because this is a very much of a family holiday weekend, I'm also going to talk about things that you can do with your kids, even though you don't want to lead them astray with those tavern games.
Down the path of
Just
yes.
we can't even say what
the
that path is called.
Yes.
It's so horrid, and we don't even want to leave you with the word. It's definitely not that we can't think of it. So what I want to talk about is, so this one, if you have just this little piece, just this little piece, it looks like a dreidel. It is not a Hanukkah dreidel, but it's actually kind of the same principle. And the game, as I find it in sources, is take all. But you also find it called pieces of 8 or put and take, or a lot of really not terribly creative names because you either put or you take coins. However, to make this a good family game, you can also find this referred to in books of children's games. And it's kind of assumed that your little children are going to get together at Christmas, be given their nuts and their candies, and then gamble them away with all of their cousins and try to win all of their cousins. And at a very early age, they learn that you can also lose all of yours to your cousins if you don't.
A life lesson.
It is. It's very educational. So if you have, this is something that children can play. And it's wonderful because it takes absolutely no time to do rules. Because if you come to the table with however much money you have, oh look, you have that much money. How did that happen? And I have it, so I get to decide how. Now we're ladies. We would just play this as a ladylike pastime. We're clearly
Absolutely.
not playing to earn our living. That's very unladylike. We would never. Definitely not in front of other people.
I would.
Okay, well, speak for yourself. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying I wouldn't admit to it in front of all these people. But
Show me the.
so what we'll do is we'll decide how much it costs how much you have to put in to be part of this round. How much, and I'm going to say it's 3 coins.
Okay.
3 coins means you can be part of this round.
All right.
And then we're really just going to, this is very complicated, pay attention. We're just going to spin it and look and see, it says put 2, and we're going to do what it says.
Ah, we
P2.
each put
Now
2.
you do. No, that's
Oh,
just me.
I
Now
spin.
you do, and you see what yours says.
Put 1.
Yep.
Or do you think it's put 2?
No, it says a 1 right there, and
Okay.
we're squinting. If you have better eyesight, you can see these more quickly. And we're not gonna make you watch a whole game, because this is this
Oh.
says TA. So this game may end very quickly. This says TA. TA means take all. Ha 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 ha. It's all mine. So this game is charming and lovely to me now, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes,
There's
that's
more
great.
to it. We could keep going. But just keep in mind, these can be candies. These can be pebbles. These can be acorns. All you need to do is start with something that tells you to put and take. Well, you're thinking, Mrs. Gagnon, I don't have one of those little dreidels. Isn't that what you're thinking?
No. But continue.
One in every crowd. And so I'm going to tell you what you can do if you don't have one of those and you want to play it right this minute because you have an impatient child sitting next to you watching this. If you do, type that in the comments because we would like to know about that and so we can say hi to your impatient child. But you can make what they called a teetotum that will do the same thing. If you are of a good, upstanding family and didn't want your child to play games with dice, you might give them a wooden teetotum. It's basically a top that has different sides to it, and the sides are numbered 1 through 6 instead of your dice. But in this case, I numbered them put 1, put 2, put all, take 1, take 2, take all. I made it on a piece of pasteboard. You could probably recycle something in your house to put it on a piece of pasteboard. Something perhaps from your pantry. And I took a small sliver of wood and I said, ta-da! And that one landed on put 1.
Okay.
Because it landed down on put 1. Ta-da! You can make your own right at home. And your very own teetotum. And if you're missing dice, you can just number one of these 1 through 6. And now you have something that will do the same job. So this is a good sit-down game.
Show us one more thing in your box of tricks there, Mrs.
There are
Gagnon.
so many things. And we're not going to try to pan a camera down to see this, but I always have way more games with me than I can apparently throw in the basket and actually hit it. But I want to lean graciously down here, and because this is such a picnic day, and because this is such a lawn day and run about and have children outside, I'm going to bring to you a game from a girl's own book. This book was published in 1834.
Good year.
By Mrs. Maria Child. Actually, L. Maria Child. It's Lydia Marie Child, if you really want to be technical.
Yeah.
And it is full of wonderful activities, and you can't possibly be bored looking through all these activities. But I'm going to bring one thing out here called, in here, it's La Grace. You're supposed to say it sort of French because she says this is a game that comes from the French, and originally before that from the Germans. We don't really have any references from that, so Mrs. Child could have left us a little more information. However, I can show you what it looks like. And it would be a pretty hoop, like this. Hold this, please. Thank you. And you might have some ribbons on it because the ribbons look really pretty when that hoop is flying through the air. That is their whole purpose in life, is to look pretty going through the air. And each player gets 2 sticks. Now I have a secret for you. I don't make sharpened sticks when I give this to children.
May I ask why? No.
No reason, unless you think there might be vampires in your neighborhood, in which case sharpen all of the sticks you want. But for the purpose of a picnic on Independence Weekend, I think, and so what we do with this is we gracefully, get it? That's why the name is, it's the game of graces, or se grace. And we will gracefully toss this back and forth and catch it with the other sticks and keep tossing it back and forth.
Expel it from the sticks into the...
Yes, we're just, it's catch with a little hoop and 2 sticks, is what it is. It doesn't look very graceful when I do it. So it's also far too hot for me to go running around doing this today. So I'm going to send this off the frame, and you can imagine that someone's catching it. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's see. Should I send it at someone so that they'll be mad at me when I hit them?
No.
And the trick is, it's like swords. Ready?
Send it this way.
Ready?
Send it that way.
I have to put it on an X, and then I use the X to launch it. And I will... No, that's too dangerous. Okay, I will launch it that way. Oh, he caught it. I know you just have to trust me for that, but he actually caught that, and he doesn't even have sticks to throw it back. And that is, and then of course if he had sticks, he would toss it back, and I would definitely catch it, and it wouldn't hit the whiskey punch for sure and knock it over. But again, you're thinking, Mrs. Gagnon, I don't have these fancy little hoop and sticks, and whatever shall I do? Because that impatient child is still sitting here wanting to play this. I bring this game to picnics all the time. Wonderfully, you can actually just get some. Note that mine are not sharpened. Haha, that is a life-saving measure. Okay.
You're very blunt about that statement.
Yes, I know. I have to be a little blunt when I point that out. Thank you for noticing.
You're welcome.
And then you can ribbon your own hoop. If you do embroidery, you may have an idea what sort of hoop this once upon a time was. If you do embroidery, you also know that this used to have a metal point on it, a metal edge. Please take that off before children throw it at each other. Unless you don't like them, and then that's on you. And you can wrap it up because it will get a good beating. As a matter of fact, this one is already broken. They will wind up on roofs also, and stuck in trees.
Speaking from experience, no doubt.
Yes, yes, definitely from experience. But you can very easily have one of these at your very own house to add to your celebration picnic this weekend.
Thank you, Mrs. Gagnon. I'm noticing that my drink is almost empty. I think we need to talk to somebody who knows a little bit about drink making.
Oh, that sounds like a tremendously
But I
good
think
idea.
there might be a question from Mrs. Lapenna.
Speaking of drinks, we had a guest send in a toast. Carol Owens says, "God bless the USA." Thank you, Carol.
Hear, hear.
And Chris Kimball, maybe later if Lance comes back to play another song, Chris Kimball requests play Hunters Club of Kentucky.
Hunters Club?
That's what I read. Oh, excuse me, Hunters of Kentucky. I'm thinking of cocktails.
Club is the exclusive version.
Yes, yes.
And not everyone is in the club and allowed to hear that. So
Thank you for that explanation.
I'm here to explain anything. If you want accuracy, that's another story.
Any more questions? Okay, I'm still worried about my nearly empty
I'm
glass.
worried too. You don't know what she's like. You don't know. Okay.
Let's go to Amy Liebert from the Victorian Barroom and see what she might have in store for us.
Hello. Aw. Aw, you all are so kind. Hello, everyone. Happy almost Independence Day. I think it's not quite as hot as it was in Philadelphia that summer, but we might be getting just a little bit of an idea of what it was like. And at least we're outside. We didn't have to, cram into that hall. So you may know me from some other things that I have done here at Musée de Venoge. I've been in a lot of the videos here as Charlotte Weaver, Mrs. Charlotte Golay Weaver, wife of Jacob. But when I am not here as Mrs. Weaver, my husband and I, Brian Cushing, we also have a channel called the Victorian Barroom. So we're just a little bit later in the time period. So I've come in my 1840s clothes here today. And one of our favorite drinks that we make on the Victorian Barroom is one that's also become a big favorite here at Musée de Venoge behind the scenes. And that is a mint julep from 1840. It was invented by a man called Joe Redding, and he was a Louisville bartender. And so we call it the Joe Redding mint julep. And you will often find Mrs. Weaver and Steve Abelt in late night editing sessions on either end, across state lines, each enjoying a Joe Redding mint julep. We know this because they send us the pictures. So the most interesting thing about this mint julep I am about to make you is that it does not have bourbon. And I know that sounds a little out there, but I just told you this is an authentic 1840 Louisville, Kentucky mint julep recipe. So you have to trust me on this. One of the things that we try to do at the Victorian Barroom when we find 19th century cocktail recipes and other drinks recipes, a cocktail was actually a specific type of mixed drink at that time, a subset, is we try to make sure that people can make them. So I'm going to show you all the ingredients that you will need here. You'll notice some of what you see looks pretty modern because I'm trying to show you all of the bottles that you can go to the store today and get, as well as some of the implements you can use that you have at home in your kitchen if you want to try this. So, first of all, we have a cognac. We have Courvoisier here. You could also use Hennessy, stuff that's really readily available. You can get fancier if you want to. We enjoy Pierre Ferrand cognac if you can find it. They actually have an 1840 blend that's delicious, but you can also just get a bottle of Hennessy, available pretty much anywhere liquor is sold. You are going to want a rum. Now, of course, you could do this with any rum, but ideally you want a Jamaica rum, or something else that's been pot distilled. That's going to be closer to the flavors of rum at that time. This recipe is before column stills became the thing. You want that, what they call that hogo, or that funk that you're going to get on a pot distilled rum. And if you see Jamaican, that's a pretty good indicator you'll get it. And then you're going to want a ruby port. General rule of thumb, if you're out buying port, is $15 or less, usually not so good, with the exception of the Trader Joe's house brand. That's pretty good. And you know, any more than maybe $30 or up, it might be something that's so good you want to just sip it for what it is. So middle of the road port, you know, something good enough for an ingredient that, you know, you're also not just trying to savor the port. We've got Cockburns here. That's a great option. Other ingredients we are going to use. We've got some sugar and some water. We've got a lemon wedge. And of course, we've got mint. I'm very excited to make this drink for Mrs. Weaver because I have been telling her for a long time that my favorite mint to make this drink with is chocolate mint. And there's some lovely mint that grows here at Musée de Venoge, but it's not chocolate mint, so I'm very excited to make this drink and hand it to her. So, we are going to start out. We are going to use some measuring spoons. Now, you could do this next step if you wanted to with simple syrup, but I promise you it is better this way. We're going to get 2 teaspoons of sugar. We're going to mix this in the glass. And you can see as I go, this is a real presentation drink. This was one of those bartender's specials to, you know, the experience for the customer is as much as about watching it be made as drinking it. So, 2 teaspoons sugar, 2 tablespoons of room temperature water, which is an ounce. 2 tablespoons are an ounce. And we're going to want to stir that around. Of course, the one thing I didn't bring out with me was my stirring spoon, but that's all right. I'll use this nice one from my ice. Very important, you need room temperature water here because sugar does not want to dissolve in cold water. You'll be spinning and spinning and spinning and not getting what you want. Can you use simple syrup? Absolutely, if you want to, but I love mint juleps that have real sugar. Whatever the recipe, anything that's got that granulated sugar in there, something about the way that flows over the ice with the liquor, whether it's bourbon julep or another type, it really is just next level. And you can chat a little bit while you mix it. Say hello to Mrs. Gagnon, Mrs. Weaver. Hello. This looks good. All right, now the next item of business is you're going to fill this with ice. Everything you put in this glass is going to go into the shaker and then back into the glass. So remember to leave yourself a little room for the rest of the liquid you're going to put in here. And of course, if you're inside, it won't be melting like it is out here. Don't mind me. Alrighty, next we want 3 mint leaves. 1, 2, 3. Because when we pour in our liquor, we're going to pour it over those leaves. Get that whole experience. Now, again, we want you to be able to do this at home, so the next thing you could use a shot glass, or, again, 2 tablespoons is an ounce. So I'm going to use this side of the jigger, but if you don't have one at home, get you a tablespoon. First in will be the cognac. It's 1, and it's equal parts of all 3 to keep it easy. So we've got 1 ounce of that cognac. 1 ounce of the rum. Again, we are using Appleton Estate. And we chilled this port down ahead of time. Ruby port again. In it goes. Now, I've got a smaller shaker here, so I'm going to pour it, but if you got the bigger kind, you can do the fancy swoosh. In we go. Shake it up. Till it's nice and chilled. Okay. Oh, and it cooperated and came back off. Very nice. Now it's all about the finish. We're going to get a lemon wedge We're going to go around the edge here. We don't dunk it in when we're done. And I always think this is such a beautiful, beautiful drink. Now, it's a mint julep, so you need some more mint. And remember that smell is as much a part of the taste experience as what lands on the tongue. So we're going to get 2 or 3 sprigs of, again, this chocolate mint that we're using. Okay, you can tell I was practicing beforehand. And very important, we're going to agitate that mint. We're going to bring out all the oil and the flavor. Oh, it smells so good. Pop it in the glass. And then, a little more. There we go. Hopefully arrange it a little more nicely than this. Oh, that looks nice. A little flower arranging. And the last thing we're going to need is a straw. Mine fell on the ground. Don't tell Mrs. Weaver. In it goes, and this is probably okay, but one little tip for anything like this is it's a good idea to clip your straw, because again, think about where that person's nose is going to be as they drink this. So, with Mrs. Weaver's permission, I might give it, oh, here she comes, excellent. Ma'am?
Oh, thank you, Miss Weaver.
Come and tell me how I did. Better with the chocolate mint?
Oh, yes. I'm gonna take one out. I'm gonna root it and grow some.
Oh, I actually brought it in a little pot, and I will leave the pot. The best way to transport mint is, in fact, plant it in a pot.
Thank you so much, Amy. Wonderful.
Happy Independence Day, everyone. Oh, we should have a toast.
Oh, yes.
I give you the father of our country, to George Washington.
Everybody.
You're here.
Did you catch Amy's toast? I hope so. So, Chris Kimball said that she didn't have all the ingredients, Amy, but she did pour herself a glass of port. So, cheers to Chris Kimball, and thanks for joining our celebration.
Smell it. Wow. Good. This was totally unexpected, and the chocolate mint, while I'm kind of a purist, I like straight mint or apple mint. This is fantastic, and I will be planting it. But I've got somebody else here with me. Who are you?
I'm Bonnie Wise.
Bonnie Wise is here, and I've known Bonnie for years, and she's going to be talking about something that's going to be happening in Louisville, something that happened 200 years ago, and it's kind of coming back.
That's
So
right.
give us a little tour.
Okay. Well, my name is Bonnie Wise, and I'm a member of the American Friends of Lafayette. You say, oh, I didn't know that group existed. Well, I didn't either until about 2 years ago. But they've been around since 1932 just to perpetuate his memory.
Really, that long? I didn't know that.
I know. And I happened to find out there was a bicentennial coming up. So in 1824, President Monroe asked the Marquis de Lafayette to come back to America because we were getting ready to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and he's the only major general left alive because he was only 19 when he came here to fight for our cause.
We forget that he was a kid.
He was literally a
19.
kid. I know.
Yeah.
Well, he was a kid, but who was married and left behind a pregnant wife
Yes,
without
well,
telling her.
That's a different story. Not funny.
Not really. I'm sure he wrote these sweet letters to Dear Heart, you know, trying to apologize for sneaking out and not telling her because the king forbade him to come.
Ah,
Yes.
okay. Didn't know that part.
Yeah.
So how are we going to commemorate it?
Well, the American Friends have asked every community that he visited, and that's a lot, because over 13 months he visited all 24 existing states and traveled about 6,000 miles.
That's a job.
That's quite a job. So stagecoach, steamboat, I mean, on his way to Louisville, the steamboat sunk.
Yeah.
And luckily no one was hurt. And so he comes to Louisville, and then he also then snuck over the river to Jeffersonville so he could get in Indiana.
So
He
he has a history of sneaking.
well, a little there,
No.
yes. Good point. So we have a celebration in Jeffersonville and
Okay.
in Louisville. May 12th is our day because you have to celebrate it 200 years to the day. And we're hoping to have a little bit right before that too, because the Lafayette reenactor that we're getting, he doesn't have a prior engagement because Lafayette was still on the river on his way to Louisville, so we hope to have a grand ball as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about Lafayette in the Revolution.
I just read an interesting book by this author, Bruce Moday. He's also a member of the American Friends. He says his reputation, he got it at the Battle of Brandywine. And apparently, I'm not into battles that much, but apparently the Battle of Brandywine really isn't discussed much. But it's where Lafayette was shot, and he kept our troops from retreating. We lost the battle to the British, but that's where he got his reputation. And because at first he was not viewed very well, because a lot of French had come over. They just wanted to, a commission to make some money and, some glory and all that. And he really was serious. And so that ship he came over, he actually bought it to bring him here.
Oh, so he had some money to begin with.
Yes.
Yeah.
His mother died, and then his grandfather died, and when he was like 12. And so suddenly he becomes like the richest young man in France.
Nice position.
Yeah. And he spent a considerable portion of his wealth helping us.
The stories I've heard is that Washington considered him as a son.
Yes, they had a very close relationship. As you know, George Washington didn't have biological children, and the Marquis's father died when he was 2.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He was killed at the Battle of Minden, and so he already had it in for the British. So,
okay, so already one
they
strike
killed
down.
his father,
Yeah.
and so they had a lifelong relationship, and he always called him his adopted father.
So what can we expect at this grand ball?
Well,
How far along are you in planning?
Well, we're fairly far along. It seems it takes a lot of work. People don't get back to you when you want them to.
No kidding.
So we're trying,
new.
consensus build. We're reaching out to all entities, reenactors, and Masons, because Lafayette was a Mason. Did you know that there are 75 Masonic lodges named for Lafayette?
No, I did not. I know how many towns are named for Lafayette.
A lot.
Yes.
And it didn't have to, it could be a variety, like LaGrange, Kentucky is named for his estate outside Paris, which they pronounce Lagrange there. But Versailles, Versailles, towns called Paris, LaGrangeville, Fayetteville. He's literally everywhere.
Okay, I didn't know. I know a lot were named after Anthony Wayne. Maybe Lafayette holds the title for the most?
Actually, New York State has the most places that are named for Lafayette, LaGrange, LaGrangeville. There's all kinds of places.
So do you think did they change in 24 or did they change earlier?
That I don't know. I think there was a spate of naming things for him, and then he left and went home.
Yeah. Well, I know you have some great handouts and you've been giving them to everybody that's here, and we will certainly be looking for more information and ready to go with that.
Be glad
Do
to
we have
tell
any
you.
other questions that we can go to?
Certainly.
And
Moonbeam Cottage on Martini Cove says, Happy early Independence Day to everyone here. Thank you for sharing your celebration and all the interesting July 4th history. And she also says, hello and cheers to Amy, Charlotte, from Andrea and Kyle.
okay.
Cheers.
We also said that Chris Kimball said, I knew about the Lafayette Bicentennial because my ancestor met him in Kentucky in 1824 or 1825. That was Chris Kimball's comment.
1825.
Wow. And now I believe we're going to go to, I'm not certain, but to another camera and another guest, Lance Menace and the gentleman with their toast. We're going to celebrate the 4th with some toast.
Here's to our president.
Here,
Here, here.
Huzzah.
May the enemies of liberty and freedom receive their just rewards from the hands of Satan himself. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
To the American soldier, the defenders of our freedom. To the American soldier, the rank and file, the roughest file ever to rasp a foe.
Hear, hear. Ladies and gentlemen, to our great and noble Commonwealth, long may she thrive in peace.
Hear, hear. Hear.
And here's to the ladies.
Huzzah!
What nice toast. I love that.
Cheers.
Cheers to everyone, and thanks for joining in tonight. We're really enjoying this Independence Day celebration, a little early and a little warm. But tonight we have Carol Owen says, hello to Aaron, and thank you for telling me about this. Also, we have Schlute. Wonderful stuff. I know I butchered that, but wonderful stuff and a delight to see. Tell Amy I really enjoy the brandy julep. And Carol Owens says yes.
And so far we have 28 watching and 14 likes. And to quote George Washington, liberty, when it begins to take root, is a plant of rapid growth. Cheers. And thank you, George.
Lance.
And now, back to Lance Menace and that request.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us tonight. I feel like, as so often with these wonderful events we do at Musée de Venoge, that we are sharing a living room together. That being the case, sometimes someone spills the milk or knocks over a glass. So just as tonight is rather a cappella, thank you for joining us in the informality and comfort of our living room. Let's drink to that. I'm going to sing you a song now called Battle Cry of Freedom. This is a little bit of a later song than the period of Musée de Venoge. However, many of you are no doubt aware that 85 years after the founding of our nation and the war against Great Britain that founded that, we had another great conflict. And that conflict was to settle questions that were undecided at the time of our founding. Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, the others who wrote our great declaration, and those 12 years later who wrote our great Constitution, left several things compromised, shall we say. And this song represents that time. Oh, we'll rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. And we'll rally from the hillside, we'll gather from the plain, shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitors and up with the stars. While we rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting our battle cry of freedom. This is a very easy chorus, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you will join us there at home and here in the audience. We will welcome to our numbers the loyal, true, and brave, shouting the battle cry of freedom. And although he may be poor, he shall never be a slave. Here we go. Shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah! Down with the traitors and up with the stars. While we rally round the flag, boys, we'll rally once again. Here we go. Shouting the battle cry of freedom. So we're springing to the call through the east and from the west, shouting the battle cry of freedom. and we'll hurl the rebel crew from the land we love the best. Everyone shouting the battle cry of freedom. The Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah. Down with the traitors and up with the stars. While we rally around the flag, boys will rally once again. Everyone shouting the battle cry of freedom. Thank you. And now I hope you'll forgive me if I don't stand. If I stand, you won't see my head. So I'm going to stay seated, but I hope you will all join me in singing the first verse and chorus of our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed in the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched, was so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. May God bless you all.
What we're going to do next is something a little bit more solemn, more meaningful, more, I'm sorry, that was just wonderful. I'm sorry. Steve Abold, retired from the 7th Infantry Living History Association, is going to read the Declaration of Independence. Actually, he hasn't memorized. When I was in Philadelphia, I went to the celebration on July 8th, which is when they read it aloud from the State House, or the Independence Hall as it's called now. And they're said that they chose the person that had the best, loudest, clearest voice to deliver it to the public. It's also said that he could be heard three blocks away. Granted, I-95 wasn't there, but he had such a voice, and it was so impressive to read it to the populace at that time. Many Americans have never read the document in its full. Many have never heard it read. We're going to be hearing it read with passion. It's something we should think about. Think about putting ourselves in their places, what they were going through at that time, and what we're going through right now. So let's switch to Steve Abold reading the Declaration of Independence.
Huzzah the Colonel.
In Congress, July 4, 1776, a declaration by the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the law of nature and of nature's God entitle them, A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires them to declare the causes for the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that governments are instituted to secure those rights, and when any government becomes destructive of those ends, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient reasons. And all experience has shown that mankind is more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, rather than right the wrongs to the forms of which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, all evincing a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government.
Hear, hear! Death to tyrants!
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain has been a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having a direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. And to prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden the government to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so abstended, he's utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the repository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance to his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasion on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers from invasion from without and convulsions from within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the condition of new appropriations of land. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent among us officers to eat out our substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their pretended acts of legislation. For quartering large bodies of troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they may commit upon the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government.
Down with the tyrant.
For suspending our own legislature and declaring them invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, plundered our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of times and unworthy the head of a civilized nation.
Hear, hear.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive in the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrection amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble of terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injuries. A prince whose character is thus marked by every character which might define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the terms of our brotherhood, and that would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. Therefore, we must acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. That they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown and all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that, as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, commence commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. John Hancock, President.
And the cheers for the sovereignty of the United States. Hip, hip,
Huzzah!
hip, hip,
Huzzah!
hip, hip.
Huzzah!
God save the United States.
Thank you, Colonel Abel. That was an incredible reading of the Declaration of Independence. And thank everyone who's here on site, and there's quite a few. And thank everyone who's been watching us for sticking with us through the very end and hearing those stirring words. But I believe that it's best to end the evening with the final quote of John Adams in his letter to Abigail Adams. And I'm going to have to read this because I have not committed to memory. You will think me transported with enthusiasm, but I am not. I am well aware of the toil and blood and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support the defense of these states. Yet through all the gloom, I can see the rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that the end is more than worth of all the means, and that posterity will triumph in that day's transaction, even although we should rue it, which I trust in God we shall not. Friends and all of you at home, let's remember that our independence is our birthright, and that passing it on is our responsibility. But may the spirit of our Independence Day fill your home, not just today on July 4th, but every day. Raise your task for a toast to the Republic.
To the Republic.
And Carol Owens wants to say, USA, USA, USA.
USA.
Thanks to all of our viewers tonight at home. We are so happy that you joined us in the celebration and poured yourself your favorite elixir, and in one case, mixed an elixir from Amy's recipe. Thanks for being with us. What a great celebration. Thanks to all of our dear friends and all of our subscribers for being here to celebrate.